Now we got to kind of get into a little incident that happened this past week in
Drama.
the NHL
Yeah.
with referee Tim Peel.
Yeah.
So he was reffing during a game between the Detroit Red Wings and Nashville Predators. And the refs, they all wear microphones now because they have to make calls on the broadcast. And, obviously the NHL loves when fans sitting at home can hear the calls that the refs are making. And the game was going to commercial break. And obviously the broadcast completely screwed this up.
Yeah, I heard it was like a 1 in a million thing. The kid fucked up, and just the timing was the worst timing in the world. I think I heard he thought they were already at commercial or something, and just his timing was off, and just total
Exactly.
nightmare.
There was a major blunder on the technical side of things when it comes to that broadcast, and Tim Peel was caught on a hot mic, essentially admitting that he was looking to make a makeup call because he missed a call earlier in the game. So he gave up a tripping penalty to Victor Arvidsson, who didn't really trip Detroit's John Merrill. And then, Tim Peel can be heard on the broadcast essentially explaining that, why he made that decision. And obviously the NHL decided to fire him, which is really unfortunate for Tim Peel.
Sort of fire him if you look at the details. Yeah.
Yeah, how he's no longer going to be reffing games.
Yeah, but no one, some made the point that no one said anything about him not getting paid. And he is keeping his pension.
That's a good point.
Because he was going to get, he was set to retire.
Yeah.
Right.
He was
everyone
set
knows
to
that.
retire at the end of the season.
Yeah, they're not stripping him of his pension, nothing like that. So.
Yeah, so obviously a very unfortunate situation because we all know that this happens in the NHL. It's been going on for years. It goes on in other sports as well. So Lepore, what's your whole take on this Tim Peel hot mic incident?
It's pretty loaded, and I found people when they were talking about it just kept referring to even up calls. The whole talk was even up calls. These are bullshit. You don't want even up calls. And to me, there are two types of even up calls. There are the ones I appreciate and the ones I don't. Starting with the ones I appreciate, the referees are human. They're going to make mistakes. Now, I've always kind of assumed that among the referees, whether it's in between whistles or it's during the intermissions, that discussions are had with regard to calls that were made. So say, for example, a guy calls a player for a hook. He puts his arm up, gives the guy the 2 minutes. Next commercial break, the other referee might come up to him and say, you know what? I noticed that player clenched the stick in between his arm and got away with it, and you called that hook. So when something like that happens and the referees decide among themselves so that they'll give that team a power play and give them a power play, just the next questionable one, it'll go that team's way to even it up, give them the even up call. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think anyone really would have a problem with that because at the end of the day, that's fair. It's fair to reward a team with a power play after they were shorthanded when they shouldn't have been, right? So moving on to the even up calls that I don't like, and I think everybody doesn't like, is the even up calls just to make the power plays even. And we've all seen it where at the end of the game, and you look at the penalties called, and it's always very close. It's 3-3, 4-4, or quite often it's off by 1. But it's always very close, and it's always kind of weird. I remember it blew up last year because someone posted a graph with the penalties given and taken by every team in the NHL and over the course of the entire season. And in both categories, every team was pretty well even, except for like 2 or 3 teams that were kind of a little off. Like for some reason, the Ducks jump into my head as a team that may have been a little off.
And I'm not surprised one bit.
Yeah, and like you think about it, it's like it's kind of hilarious. It doesn't make sense at all in the way that you would think if the game was just called the way the game's called and you saw consistent officiating, well, there'd be teams that take a lot of penalties and also they take a lot of penalties and they're hurt. They benefit on their side as well. They have a lot of high power play games, and then you would have the opposite, very low. But you'd also have teams that say take a lot of penalties, they don't give a lot of penalties, and vice versa. So it was bad. It was a bad look for the NHL last year when that was like came to mainstream media, and then now with this, bad. And you just know that the people talk, I'm trying to find my words here as best I can. The take of a lot of people was the NHL has to do something about this. Well, to everyone, newsflash, the referees are on the side of the NHL. They're not an independent body that works separately from the NHL. They are in partnership and work with the National Hockey League to officiate the game the way the NHL wants it to be officiated. So the NHL knows what's going on, whatever it is, whether it's total bullshit or whether it's fair, the way people want it to be. So there was that awkwardness for me seeing what the NHL did with that statement and letting go of Tim Peel, where at the end of the day, it was just a PR move. The guy got caught on the mic.
100%.
And it's a terrible look. So we have to do something here. And they had to, put that iron fist down to make it look like they're taking a stand, and they will not put up with this. But the NHL knows what's going on. They have relationships with the refs. I'm sure they have meetings with the refs all the time and what they want to see and don't want to see. I'm sure I know there's going to be meetings with officials before and after games about what they want to see the referees do and not do. So it was a weird thing of events for me, in the way that I'm not surprised by anything. You saw this big backlash. And I guess that was the biggest shock for me, was that everyone's like putting their arms up in the air. Like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. Guys, like, what did you think? Like, you just look at the numbers. Anyone who's ever watched the sport or played the sport knows that's just kind of the way it goes. And that's not me trying to justify it, saying, well, that's just the way it is. No, it's just the way it is and the way the game's always kind of been played and officiated, for that matter. So, I mean, I think it's one of those things that the NHL is going to try to do their best just to squash, and maybe kind of partner with the media bodies to, like, let's just hope everyone forgets about this. And in a year or two, it'll just be one of those blips on the radar that never comes up ever again. But we'll move on. We'll see if there's any changes, but I really and truly doubt we're going to see any changes.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This happens all the time. It's been going on for years, and it's not just in the NHL, it's in other sports as well. Now, am I saying that that's right? No, I think the NHL should find a way to address this, but for the people, thinking that it's black and white and all it's going to take is one phone call with the refs and then they're going to just fix all these problems. Like, that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
This is not something that you just fix overnight. This is something that is going to take an off season for the NHL to sit down with the refs and essentially go over how they want to call penalties moving forward. Because I don't like when a penalty is called and, the refs realize, oh shit, we fucked this up. So now let's make a phantom call on the other team. Like, sure, Lepore, I know you said that in some instances you think the makeup calls are fair, but I think they have to be warranted too, right? Like, I don't think you should be going out here and making phantom calls. Like, and I look at the Tim Peel call that he made on Victor Arvidsson, where he's like, oh shit, I need to call a penalty on Nashville. Victor Arvidsson like barely taps John Merrill's skate, tripping penalty. Nashville, you got to go on the power play. We got to give you a power play now. And I do get frustrated from time to time. Like, when I'm watching a Leaf game, for example, and I see, okay, the Leafs have just had like 2 power plays in a row, and you're sitting there and you're like, you're like, well, the opposition is going to get a power play in the next few minutes here because, they can't give the Leafs a 3rd power play in a row. God forbid.
But that's the bad even up that I was referring to. Like for me, the one I think I'm more okay with, and again, it's not perfect, is the one when there is a blown call. And then
that's fair. That's
so
fair.
Like, and again, it's not ideal. I just think, to me, I'll put it this way. That's understandable to me. That's at least, and I think that's almost kind of like human nature too, that one of your buddy referees comes up to you and says, hey, you fucking blew that call. I think it's natural human reaction to like, I kind of owe that team one now. So.
Yeah. And that happens. And like, I'm not like, outraged by that at all, but I think it does have to get to a point where if you do blow a call, and listen, refs are going to continue to blow calls, right? They're humans making decisions. They're watching the game in real time. Like, they're going to make bad decisions. It's inevitable, right? but I think it has to get to a point where they're not necessarily out there like hunting to make a makeup call. Like if you make a mistake, so be it. You got to just continue going. You got to take that mistake, and you can't be giving out phantom calls. And I kind of look at Major League Baseball when it comes to this, where, you know, an umpire realizes that a ball was like 3 inches outside, and he's like, oh crap. Now I got to give this pitcher a call like in the next inning or whatever. Right. And I don't know. I don't like that. And I understand that, you know,
you're saying scrap it. You're saying you made a bad call, but throw it in the garbage. It is what it is now.
You made a bad call, throw it in the garbage and just continue on. And, you know, do we want to see one team have like 8 power plays in a game and the other team doesn't? No, not necessarily. But listen, if that other team is making stupid decisions and taking bad penalties, then you know what? Screw that team. Then you're going to be killing 8 penalties in that game, and so be it. But I just think the big thing is that there's a lot of gray area involved here. And it's like I said, this is not something that the NHL is just going to immediately fix. They're not just going to snap their fingers. And, you know, from now until the end of the season, all these refs are going to be calling games differently. Like if you think that that's going to happen, I'm sorry, but you're out of your mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. So
I'm sure there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of meetings scheduled right now to have these discussions on how do we make people happy, or at least make it appear like we're doing things a little differently.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if Tim Peel does not get caught on that hot mic, like this just continues to go on.
You know what's funny? My point the next day was like Nashville was going off, right? Like I don't know if you saw like Duchesne did an interview about how ridiculous it was, whatever. And I thought right away, well, if there wasn't the hot mic, would you be on the radio today going nuts about what this referee said?
No, absolutely
no. Like
not.
he was like, oh, I was all confused by what he was saying, and that's just ridiculous. He's got to referee the game fairly. You wouldn't be saying shit, bud, if you know this is the way it is, if that didn't get caught on the mic. So I just found it kind of humorous.
No, absolutely. And then like when you get into the playoffs, right? And, you know, a lot of the times the refs decide to put their whistles away, you know, especially in overtime. You don't want to be that guy that like makes that questionable call when you're in like double OT in the second round of the playoffs and you give that team a power play and they win the series. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where the NHL just has to figure this shit out. They got to stick to a plan and make it transparent and say, listen, this is how we're going to call these games. You know, whether it's preseason, regular season, Stanley Cup final, we're going to try our best. There's going to be mistakes, but here's what we're going to try to do moving forward. So who knows, Lepore, when that's ever going to happen with the NHL, because as we know, a lot of the times this league is making decisions that make us shake our head.
Yeah, I always say hockey is the best sport in the world, but the NHL is the worst fucking league in the world.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of times where I'm just left.
Oh my God.
Absolutely shaking my head.
Why do we follow this? Like
unreal, man.